She enters the scene like a flickering light. A young Jane Birkin dancing down Boulevard Saint-Germain, a wicker basket swinging on one arm and a baby on the other, with the sly, rumpled figure of Serge Gainsbourg at her side. In 1969, her breathy moans on the scandalous song made censors blush and knives and forks drop mid-dinner in a Paris restaurant. Decades later, that baby in her arms, Charlotte Gainsbourg, would stun film festivals with fearless performances and take home Cannes Gold for a film that literally made grown men faint. This duo has rewritten the rules of beauty. The Birkin Gainsbourg effect. They turned shyness into mystique, imperfections into trademarks, and a cross-generational cool factor that still makes beauty editors swoon. We're about to explore how Jane and Charlotte did it, and how you can channel a bit of their uncanny magic. And yes, stick around till the end for some practical tips to steal the looks. Welcome. I'm Kira, and this is your beauty blueprint. If you only have 30 seconds, here's the bottom line of this video. Jane Birkin and Charlotte Gainsbourg's secret is authenticity. That rare thing we can no longer find anywhere. The answer isn't surgery. They mastered the art of effortless allure, an undefinable glamour built on embracing flaws and blending innocence with confidence. Birkin's boyish chic became an English blueprint for the French girl aesthetic we idolize today, while Charlotte Gainsbourg proved that her authenticity is her beauty. In short, they didn't chase trends or perfection. They made being themselves the most captivating style of all. But if you'd like a bit more of an explanation, follow me. Settle in, maybe pour yourself a cup of English tea with milk, and let's start at the beginning. Jane Mallory Birkin was born in London in 1946 into a well-heeled artistic family. Her mother was an actress, her father a Navy war hero. By her teens, Jane was sensitive, dreamy, and insecure, a girl who wrote in her diary, "Am I really alive? Is this all a dream?" She felt ungainly next to the era's bombshell beauties, a lump of coal by the side of the road. At boarding school she was miserable, all skinny limbs and big teeth, with a shy demeanor that classmates could mistake for aloofness. No one, including Jane herself, quite anticipated the magnetism she would later wield. Then came the first of many tumultuous loves. At 17, Jane fell for John Barry, yes, the composer behind James Bond theme music. He was 30. She was a virgin schoolgirl. She married Barry at 18, had a baby, Kate, and got a crash course in heartbreak. Barry was cruel and philandering, often flaunting other women in front of his young wife. Jane, desperate to please, would hide a stick of eyeliner under her pillow so she'd look pretty when she woke up, terrified he'd see her tiny, piggy eyes bare. The swinging 60s pushed women to all wear the same heavy makeup, a trend she came to regret. We all had the same eyes. One night, Barry swaggered home, boasting of a dinner with a beautiful blonde actress. Jane, in a rage of jealousy and hurt, smashed eggs into the sink and clawed her legs. At 19, with a 3-month-old baby on her hip, she finally hit her breaking point. Barry's infidelity was splashed in the papers, and Jane fled back to her parents' home. It was a dark night of the soul for a young woman who felt frightened to live. How did this fragile, self-doubting girl morph into the era-defining it girl? The transformation began, as transformations often do, with a change of scene. In 1968, the 21-year-old Jane flew to Paris for a film audition. She had a baby in her arms, barely spoke French, and was still licking her wounds. The film was Slogan, and her co-star was to be Gainsbourg, a brilliant, saturnine songwriter 20 years her senior, known for his wit, his whiskey habit, and a fling with Brigitte Bardot. Their first meeting was legendarily awful. Serge was dismissive and aloof. Jane, nervous and crying from the stress of her screen test, found him horrible, arrogant and snobbish, complaining that this dreadful man, Serge Bourignon, despised her. It was not love at first sight, more like mutual irritation. Only later that week, dragged to a nightclub by the director, did Jane see the truth. On the dance floor, Serge stomped on her toes, then sheepishly apologized, revealing a shy charm. They danced and drank into the night. Serge ended up passing out drunk on his hotel bed, fully clothed, while Jane sat giggling at the absurd non-date. Somehow in this clumsy comedy of errors, a spark ignited. Thus began the 20th century's most fabled love affair. Jane Birkin and Serge Gainsbourg became the bohemian power couple of 70s Paris. She was all English rose freshness and coltish naivete. He was the chain-smoking, world-weary provocateur, a match of opposites that somehow fit. Their home on Rue de Verneuil became a creative salon and notorious party den. By 1969, France, and soon the world, knew Jane as Serge's muse. That year they released Je t'aime, moi non plus, as a slow, orgasmic duet literally composed of Jane's moans and Serge's rasp over an organ melody. The song was so erotic that the Vatican condemned it and radio stations banned it. Naturally, it shot to #1 in the UK charts. People whispered that the couple had recorded it while actually having sex. Thank goodness it wasn't true, otherwise it would have been a long-playing record, said Serge. They asked to play the fresh tape at a restaurant right after the studio session, and fellow diners fell silent as those soft groans filled the room. Jane was delighted by the shock value. She called the track utterly innocent. In that moment, the shy girl reinvented herself as a symbol of sexual liberation, without ever raising her voice above a whisper. Fame came as an avalanche. Suddenly, Jane's wide eyes and gap-toothed smile were on magazine covers. But what really set her apart was her style. She didn't dress like a bombshell or a polished movie star. She dressed, well, like herself. While Brigitte Bardot strutted dressed up and made up, Jane ran around in t-shirts, jeans, and messy bangs. She often went braless, not as a statement, but because it was comfortable. She wore flat Repetto ballet slippers or worn-out boots instead of stilettos. In an era of big coiffed hair, she left hers long and famously fringed. Birkin bangs that seemed casually chopped, sometimes by her own hand, kitchen scissors in a fit of boredom. She wasn't a hippie, but rather a rising star from the upper class. Jane's mix of English propriety and French insouciance created a new kind of cool. Designers like Yves Saint Laurent adored her floppy chic. Jane became one of the first celebrities to be relentlessly photographed in off-duty outfits, street style before anyone called it that. She was nonchalance personified. This improvisational look resonated. The average girl couldn't copy Catherine Deneuve's immaculate couture, but she could definitely throw on a white men's shirt and cut-offs like Jane and instantly feel a bit gamine. Jane's style became a blueprint for that attainable, laissez-faire beauty. Decades later, Alexa Chung and countless it girls still cite Birkin as an inspiration. Even Jane's choice of accessory was iconically unpretentious. She carried around a plain woven basket everywhere. Even to formal events, she'd toss everything in that basket from notebooks and diapers to stolen silverware from Paris bistros. The basket was Jane's signature until one fateful day in the mid-80s when she boarded an Air France flight and struggled to shove the unwieldy thing in the overhead compartment. Her seatmate happened to be Jean-Louis Dumas, the CEO of Hermès. By the end of the flight, Jane had scribbled her dream design for a better bag on an air sickness bag. A year later, Hermès introduced the Birkin bag, now the world's most famously unattainable status purse. Current models retail for 5 or even 6 figures. The original prototype just auctioned for $10 million. Ironically, the woman who never cared about couture ended up lending her name to the ultimate luxury accessory. Jane herself found the craze a bit absurd. She would cheekily use Birkin bags for mundane tasks like carrying canned cat food. And their home life was just as unconventional. The couple had a daughter, Charlotte, born in 1971. Serge, who had always felt ugly and unloved, found an ego boost in this beautiful young woman and their cherubic children around. But the domestic bliss was chaotic. They famously kept rock and roll hours, waking at 3 p.m., taking the kids to the park after school, then putting Kate and Charlotte to bed and carousing all night until dawn, coming home with the dustmen at 7 a.m. Little Charlotte reportedly was so used to nightclubs that, as a baby, she would sleep soundly in Jane's big basket under the table at Regine's, while her parents danced till sunrise. It was bohemian parenting, to say the least. But the fairy tale had cracks. Serge's drinking, initially part of his charm, spiraled into alcoholism. By the late 70s, he would turn mean and even violent. I came home completely pissed. I beat her, 2 seconds too much, and bam! Serge later admitted bluntly of his behavior. Jane's diaries from that time paint a portrait of life with a mercurial genius. Everything revolves around him. Orders at table, hard words. This masculine superiority dominates everything. If there's a revolt, I'm the one who's sick or changed or good for nothing, she wrote. She loved him, but she was suffocating. Well, soon Charlotte Gainsbourg has joined her mother in the pantheon of cool. If Jane was the it girl of 70s Paris, Charlotte became the indie muse of turn-of-the-millennium cinema. She grew up literally in the spotlight. Her father, Serge, once brought tiny Charlotte on stage, hidden inside a basket during his concerts, a mischievous prop. Being the child of two legends was not necessarily easy. As a little girl, Charlotte felt awkward and overshadowed. I felt that I was so ugly in comparison to my mother, she reflected. Imagine hitting adolescence and your mom is the Jane Birkin and your dad publicly calls you his ugly duckling. He meant it teasingly, but still. Charlotte inherited Jane's big eyes, but also Serge's prominent nose. At one point, teen Charlotte wanted a nose job, but my father always said that having a big nose is character, she recounted. He told her the tale of Juliette Greco, the French chanteuse who lost her signature look after getting a nose fix. So Charlotte kept the nose, and in time came to cherish it. This embrace of flaws as features would later become central to her. I'm full of flaws, she told an interviewer cheerfully. When you don't have a perfect face, you have to come to peace with that. Some things you find unattractive, you can put an accent on. That will be attractive. That philosophy, arguably inherited from Serge and Jane, became Charlotte's personal beauty blueprint. Charlotte stepped into her own spotlight early. At just 12, she acted in her first movie. At 13, she recorded a duet with her father called Lemon Incest. Yes, you read that right. The song with intentionally provocative lyrics like L'amour que nous ne ferons jamais ensemble, the love we will never make together, and its music video featuring Serge and a very young Charlotte lounging shirtless together caused an expected uproar. The scandal only fueled Charlotte's peculiar fame as the enfant terrible offspring of Gainsbourg. It set the tone. She was unafraid of controversy, almost numb to it from birth. By 14, she won the Most Promising Actress César, the French Oscar, for her role in L'Effronté, where she played a moody adolescent. The role cemented her as the sullen, intriguing teen. Charlotte also had to grapple with the tomboy style her mother imposed on her. Jane had cut Charlotte's hair short like a boy when she was little, dressed her in boys' school uniforms. That gave Charlotte a complex about her femininity. My sister Kate had long hair. She was beautiful, but my mother cut my hair short. I don't think that's where all my awkwardness came from, but it didn't help me feel I was a girl, Charlotte recalled. Jane's ideal of the perfect woman was androgynous. This was partly Jane's strategy to avoid being pigeonholed as just a sex object. In the late 70s, she herself had adopted a tomboy uniform. Remember the Bataclan concerts with her boy cut and blazers? To redirect attention to her art. But for young Charlotte, it was complicated. She admired her mother hugely, yet knew she would never get to be as effortlessly beautiful. For years, Charlotte was painfully self-conscious. She enjoyed performing, but hated seeing herself. The physical part, I really hated myself, she said of her teens. In photos or on screen, she saw only flaws. It took decades for Charlotte to say, you know what? It's okay not to be as beautiful as Mom. Ironically, the very qualities that made Charlotte doubt herself became her key. She grew into a lithe, doe-eyed young woman with that undone aesthetic that today's fashion world loves. Basically, the Birkin jeans expressing in a darker, more peculiar mode. By her 20s, photographers and directors celebrated Charlotte's realness. She wouldn't conceal her dark under-eye circles or the gap in her teeth. Instead, she saw the attractiveness in something society doesn't see as attractive. Her style remained low-key. Tousled hair, no makeup, a rotation of well-loved leather jackets. Like her mother, she gravitated to Saint Laurent's aesthetic and even later became a muse to Anthony Vaccarello. This gave Charlotte an edge in developing her own style. She learned early on that individuality trumps trying to be a glamour girl. Professionally, Charlotte carved a path distinct from her parents. Directors like Lars von Trier, who seek fearless performers, found their dream actress in her. With Lars, Charlotte made a notorious trilogy: Antichrist, Melancholia, and Nymphomaniac. Her performance of a grieving woman in erotic breakdown in Antichrist was so intense that it earned her the Best Actress award at Cannes and left many viewers shell-shocked. In Nymphomaniac, she portrays a sex addict exploring the darkest recesses of desire. Few actresses of her pedigree would dare, but Charlotte seemed destined to push buttons. She maintained that she doesn't do it for shock. She does it because the art compels her. As she has said, "It's a challenge to be able to grow up and to age on screen. I enjoy the work, but it's hard. I don't like to see myself aging on camera. To have the spotlight, I'm not too comfortable with that." So what is it that made Jane Birkin and Charlotte Gainsbourg so powerfully attractive? Why did Serge, that notorious playboy, choose Jane as the love of his life? Why do auteurs and designers flock to Charlotte as a muse? It goes beyond pretty faces or famous last names. It touches on archetypes in our collective imagination. First, Jane Birkin's allure. She embodied a fascinating contradiction. She was innocent and sexy at once. With her soft, breathy voice and coltish mannerisms, she projected a little girl-lost quality that tapped directly into the male protective instinct. But pair that with her uninhibited attitude, posing nude, rolling on the floor with a photographer, singing simulated orgasms, and you have a potent mix of Madonna and whore. Birkin represented the eternal ingenue with a twist, a sacred nymphet who was childlike in affect yet completely aware of and in control of her sexual power. She actively participated in shaping her image. Remember, she insisted on performing Je t'aime with Serge when Bardot wouldn't let her version out. She wanted to stake her claim as his erotic muse. There's a story that during the filming of Je t'aime, moi non plus, Jane dove into the most controversial graphic scenes with gusto, including a graphic anal sex sequence, because she understood the artistic statement being made. Her character is literally named Johnny and dresses like a boy. She wasn't the overt bombshell. Next to Brigitte Bardot's lush curves, Jane was skinny and flat-chested, and she joked about it. She was the whimsical, elusive feminine spirit that inspires creativity in men. Indeed, the men in Jane's life were all artists, and she was their muse, their living flame. Eleanor Glynn, who coined It Girl in the 1920s, said it is some curious magnetism. It always comes with people who are perfectly self-confident, indifferent to everything and everybody. Jane had that, and as many can attest, confidence is sexy as hell. Even her insecurity was sort of endearing. She might have fretted over her piggy morning eyes or bitten her nails anxiously, but then she'd turn around and flash that radiant gap-toothed smile that said, "I don't care, I'm enjoying life." That was her it factor. Now, Charlotte Gainsbourg's allure is an entirely different flavor. Charlotte didn't set out to be a sex symbol at all, but precisely by not catering to conventional sexiness, she became an entirely new kind of siren. Her signature on-screen persona is a woman in extremis with a haunting beauty. Think of her roles: incestuous daughter, depressed sister awaiting apocalypse, nymphomaniac seeking meaning, feral grieving mother. These are archetypes of the shadow, parts of human nature that are chaotic, taboo, and profound. Charlotte, with her fearless willingness to go there, embodies the shadow feminine, creative, destructive, raw, and honest. There's a famous observation that in everything Charlotte creates, there is a thread of emotion. You can hear it, see it. This draws people in like a magnet. It's the charisma of the true artist. We sense she's not faking anything. For those who worked with her, Charlotte's unvarnished approach, combined with her pedigree, she's literally a living link to 60s, 70s cool, made her endlessly intriguing. She's the sexy woman who doesn't care about being sexy. Paradoxically, by often appearing a bit shy, even self-effacing, Charlotte awakened in others the desire to tell her, no, you're beautiful. A dynamic not unlike her father defending her nose. That is a heady mix of fragility and danger. Men, and plenty of women, find that combination catnip. She is approachable yet unattainable. From a purely visual standpoint, both Birkin and Gainsbourg also benefited from what you might call distinctive features. Jane's eyes and long face, Charlotte's heavy eyelids, and countless resemblances to her parents, it all made them stand out in an industry of cookie-cutter beauties. Fashion photographer Peter Lindbergh once said that a woman's allure lies in what's wrong with her face. Now add body language. Jane's gawky, joyful, galumphing walk, Charlotte's guarded hands in pockets posture. Their physical presence was genuine, not practiced. They showed up as is. Even if we reveal everything, we don't show much, Jane quips. That sums it up. Somehow neither Jane nor Charlotte ever gave it all away. Well, ever wondered how you might pick up some of that Birkin Gainsbourg magnetism for yourself? In the next section, we'll break down their beauty routines, makeup, skincare, and style, and how you can recreate them. You might be surprised by how simple much of it is. One of Jane's go-to face products costs only $25. So don't go anywhere. The practical beauty blueprint is coming up next. So, what concrete steps can we mere mortals take from Jane and Charlotte's playbook? The good news is that their beauty was never about high glamour or expensive, hard-to-find items. Both Jane and Charlotte believe in the minimal makeup mantra. Charlotte learned young what suited her. A smudge of black liner, a slight flush, little touches that enhance rather than change her features. Ditch thick foundation and heavy contour. If you need a bit of coverage, Charlotte swears by the NARS Soft Matte Complete Concealer, even wanting to buy one for her mom. The one skincare product Jane used religiously for decades is the French pharmacy staple Embryolisse Lait Crème Concentrée. In fact, Charlotte revealed that Embryolisse was the only beauty product her mother ever used. And yes, you can snag it on Amazon for around $25. Jane also adores Elizabeth Arden 8-Hour Cream, another do-it-all balm she's slathered on since her 20s. Also, Jane splashes her face with cold water every morning to reduce puffiness. If there's one makeup feature Jane and Charlotte both love, it's a smudgy eye. In the 60s, young Birkin always rocked dark eyeliner. In her NARS collaboration, Charlotte created a mossy green kohl to mimic how her eye makeup looks after a night out, slightly worn in and sexy. A little imperfection in the eyeliner, even some leftover from yesterday, is not a sin, but a bonus. Neither of these women is often seen in heavy lipstick or blush, but they do like a healthy flush of color. Jane's secret trick is to use lipstick as blush. I always wear a lipstick, kind of reddish, that I put on and take away. That was my mother's technique. What's left on your finger, you put on your cheeks. Charlotte's NARS collection actually included a product called Jeanette, named after Jane's nickname, which was a berry-toned multiple tint for exactly this lip and cheek blotted effect. The last pieces of the puzzle aren't in a bottle or tube. Do carry yourself with an easy grace, good posture, relaxed movements, a genuine smile. Both women have that endearing habit of laughing or smiling in photos in an unposed way. As for fashion, why not incorporate a couple of their signature items to telegraph the look? That could be a straw basket bag. They're still available and make a perfect market tote or summer purse. Jane also popularized pairing menswear with feminine pieces. For example, a sharp Yves Saint Laurent smoking jacket. She loved her jeans, usually well-worn, high-waisted, straight leg. Charlotte opts for leather jackets, denim on denim, and pointy boots. A little rock and roll nod to her dad's aesthetic. And if you really want to inject some playful Gainsbourg edge, you could even sport a men's fragrance. Serge famously wore a Guerlain's Habit Rouge, and Charlotte has said she sometimes prefers traditionally male scents. It's that androgyny again. And that completes your beauty blueprint for today. Use it wisely.